Hey everyone, Jeff Klassen again, welcoming you to another episode of Casts from the Past. This week's film is called Bass Fishing Southern Style. It's an Evinrude production, and it's basically about the evolution of the bass fishing boat. The musical track that they laid over this film is somewhat like a Gilligan's Island episode, which is kind of fun, I guess. Also, at the beginning, the narrator claims that there's a bunch of celebrities and politicians fishing in this film, but they never do say who's in it. So, I don't know, maybe you can guess by watching the film. So without further ado, I bring you Bass Fishing Southern Style. And please watch the film to the end, because if you do, we got ourselves a big old pile of bass for the frying pan.
This is Bass Country, USA, where the fisherman is king and where he pursues his sport in royal style. The bass boat is his royal carriage, and from his upholstered swivel chair throne, he is master of all he surveys. There was a time, and not so long ago, when the typical bass fisherman was pictured as a somewhat seedy character in overalls and a battered straw hat, fishing from a leaky John boat with a cane pole. Today, the bass angler has status. Here, a former governor of Wisconsin and a Milwaukee business executive sample bass fishing on a Texas lake. And on this same lake, two radio and television personalities from Chicago are getting a taste of bass fishing Southern style and finding it very much to their liking. The fact that it was snowing in Chicago the morning they left might have something to do with their enthusiasm for angling south of the Mason-Dixon line. That combination of good weather, fine equipment, and cooperative fish is hard to beat anywhere. And when it comes to winning popularity contests among fishermen, Mr. Bass is the champion, not only in the South, but in most other parts of the country as well. So it is fitting that a special boat should have been created in his honor. Actually, the bass boat was born more than 40 years ago in Shreveport, Louisiana, when Holmes Thurman, an Evinrude outboard motor dealer, decided there must be something better than a John boat for bass fishing. So he designed the plywood skeeter boat, and many of these craft are still in use, such as this one on Lake Bistineau in Louisiana. The homemade sculling paddle is authentic as the old Envinrude Zephyr outboard motor on the transom. There was a lapse of 30 years before the next step in the evolution of the bass boat, when the plywood skeeter boat was duplicated in fiberglass. You can buy a fiberglass skeeter boat today, but of course you would insist on an electric fishing motor on the bow and an electric start outboard on the stern. If the fishing is a bit slow, just lift up the electric fishing motor, turn a switch key to start the outboard motor, push a button to shift into forward gear, and head for the other side of the lake, where the fishing is always better. Enter now another version of the bass boat, a blunt-nosed, broad-beam craft loaded to the gunnels with accessories for the sophisticated angler. While the shape of the bass boat may have changed, the name of the game is the same. Everyone is after Mr. L.L. Bass, and those initials LL stand for Lunker Largemouth. This was the best of the cat for the sunrise anglers, and the newcomers will be lucky to beat this lunker before sundown. Little time is wasted in launching the bass boats, a procedure that often contradicts the legend that fishing is a leisurely sport. Efficiency is the watchword today, and the bass boat is the final word. It is truly a fishing machine designed for the comfort and convenience of the angler as he stalks his prey. Command station for the skipper of this bass boat is an upholstered swivel chair in the bow. Here, all controls for the angling mission are right at his fingertips. An electronic device reveals lake bottom structure and often discloses fish beneath the boat. The electric fishing motor is for stalking fish in close quarter maneuvering. The outboard motor controls include electric start switch, push-button electric shifting and remote engine throttle lever. Efficiency again, even in the matter of rigging the rods. No simple thing this when a properly equipped fisherman should have at least 3 outfits ready for instant action. Selecting the right lure is like picking a winner for the Kentucky Derby, and especially when you have an assortment like this from which to choose. Shall it be a hot spot, a little George, a beetle spin, or a doodle socker? Decisions, decisions. Well, this looks like a good choice, so tie it securely to the monofilament spinning line with a special non-slip fisherman's clinch knot. And now we're ready to go. An electric power tilt lowers the outboard motor into the water, and the skipper turns the ignition key to start the engine. To back up, push the reverse button. The central control station with midship steering is popular, especially with larger boats and more powerful outboard motors. Steering is easier for the skipper, and there is an added margin of safety. To go ahead, just push the forward button, and the electric shift does the rest. A 50 horsepower outboard is average power for most bass boats, but this 16-foot boat is powered by a 65 horsepower motor. The fleet heads for the fishing grounds, which invariably are several miles away. This is Toledo Bend, a man-made lake on the Texas-Louisiana boundary line. It's a big lake, 85 miles long and with almost 2,000 miles of shoreline. Thanks to the blunt nose and tri-hull construction, the bass boat has more usable room than most fishing craft. There's ample room forward, either for the skipper's command station or to mount a fishing chair for a fellow passenger. Toledo Bend is a relatively new lake dating back to 1967 when it was created by a dam on the Sabine River at, of course, Toledo Bend. Most of the timber was left standing when the valleys were flooded. There was some cutting on the ridges before flooding, and these are the trails through the drowned forest which the fishermen follow. The skipper in his command station steers his bass boat with a lever-type control mounted on the port gunwale of the boat. To the novice, there is little to distinguish one part of the submerged forest of Toledo Bend from another, but every veteran fisherman has his favorite spot, and that's where he heads for. When the fishing spot is reached, the electric fishing motor is swung overboard for action. A foot control operates the electric motor. A switch button is depressed to start the motor, and the foot treadle determines the direction. The pointer atop the motor tells the skipper the direction in which the bow is heading. There's a speed control, which is set to meet varying conditions. More power is needed on a windy day. Now the skipper has both hands free for his fishing as he heads his bass boat into the woods. Somewhere in this tangle of trees and branches, some lunker bass are hiding, but finding them and catching them isn't going to be easy. In spite of our remarkable fishing machines, you might say that now the fish have the advantage. Meanwhile, our companions have arrived at their hot spot, and they lose no time in putting their electric fishing motors into operation. Their strategy is different, however. Instead of hunting the fish in the woods, they are skirting the edge of the trees and casting into them. It's always a disappointment to discover that another fisherman has preempted your favorite fishing grounds, but angling courtesy demands that you respect his territorial rights and move on to another spot. But first, a bit of fishing chatter is in order. It's encouraging to hear that the bass have been working on shad minnows near the surface. That could mean good action on topwater lures. And thanks for the tip. And all is forgiven for taking over our favorite fishing hole. The depth finder locates a potential hot spot, and that tip on the topwater lure was a good one. At least it resulted in action for the angler in the bow seat. A nice bass comes aboard. No trophy fish, but a keeper. Even if it doesn't impress your fishing partner, it's a starter, and you're one up early in the game. The action spreads to another part of the lake, and the old-timers fishing the timberline get their taste of it. It's almost as if someone rang an underwater bell. Now, there's an idea for the builders of bass boat accessories to work on. Apparently, this is not the day to be back in the woods. Here it's tough fishing where short, accurate casts are in order. You might say this is trying to catch fish in the treetops. And there are times when things other than fish get caught in those treetops. The bass are chasing the shad minnows and the fishermen are chasing the bass. Topwater fishing is a lot of fun, even if the fish come medium instead of large. Everyone catches fish, even fellows who prefer to fish in the woods. And speaking of catching fish, this team of old-timers seems to be doing okay. No question about which boat is the winner today. The fellows in blue, in the blue boat that is, are the heroes. But tomorrow's another day, and it's time to crank up the outboards and head for home. Actually, you don't have to catch a lot of fish to enjoy a beautiful day on the water in a bass boat. For here is outdoor recreation that's first class all the way. Sunrise and sunset are as much a part of the fisherman's day as the landing of a lunker bass. And as the travel booklets put it, going there and coming back is half the fun. It was a good day on Toledo Bend, an easy-going kind of December day that the folks in the North Country enjoy in September or October. Fishing is a year-round sport in the South, and that's likely the reason the bass boat was born in Louisiana and grew up in Texas. Folks take their fishing seriously down here, so much so that they want to enjoy it in comfort and in style, and that's not such a bad idea. And like other good things, the word does get around. 600 miles and 5 states east of Toledo Bend, the Santee Cooper Lakes are the pride of South Carolina, and Lake Marion is the queen of Santee Cooper, perhaps because it's bigger than its sister, Lake Moultrie. Carolina fishermen were quick to discover the bass boat as it migrated eastward, and it soon became the popular fishing machine on Lake Marion. Early December is a beautiful time of the year in South Carolina with crisp, sunny days to tempt the angler. Like Toledo Bend, Lake Marion was not cleared before flooding, and the submerged willows, cypress, and swamp hardwood trees are fish havens. So, you cast your spinner baits and topwater lures into the openings and pockets in the trees and brush, and you hope your tackle is heavy enough to manhandle the lunker that just might be waiting there. And this could be that lunker. He pounced on the spinnerbait the instant it hit the water at the foot of a cypress tree, and he's fighting every foot of the way to get back to the roots of the tree. But this time the angler wins as he hoists his lunker aboard. This beauty will tip the scale at better than 8 pounds, and 8 and 10-pound bass are not unusual at Santee Cooper. You can be proud of this one, mister, even if you don't catch another fish all day. Meanwhile, another bass angler is working the shoreline pockets of a brushy island nearby. He's using a spinnerbait lure with a 5-foot casting rod that has a quick taper for good casting action. Here's a solid strike, and he sets the hook into a hard-fighting fish. You've got to keep the pressure on to prevent the fish from diving into the tangle of brush and roots. Well, it may not be another 8-pounder, but it's a good bass, and it won't tarnish the reputation the Sandy Cooper Lakes have established as a bass fishing hotspot. To prove our point that bass fishing is a year-round sport in the South, let's follow our migratory bass boat to Lake Amistad on the Mexican border near Del Rio, Texas. There are 850 miles of shoreline on Lake Amistad, and much of the lake is open water. It can get choppy at times, and this calls for a fast, seaworthy fishing craft. Again, the bass boat is the answer. This husky 16-foot boat is powered by a 65-horsepower outboard. Plenty of boat and plenty of power to cope with Amistad weather. This is chaparral country, and the plants are mainly brush and cactus. There's no lack of rocks, and this combination of submerged rocks and brush makes good fish habitat. This rocky cover looks promising, so the electric motor is lowered for action. According to the fishing forecasters, today should be a good one. A warm front is moving in, and the shad minnows and other forage fish should be schooling near the surface. This calls for surface lures, which is the type of fishing most anglers prefer. There's a temptation to use ultralight tackle because the water is so clear, but Lake Amistad bass are big and strong, and you must keep them out of the brush. So medium weight tackle makes better sense here. There ought to be a good one at the foot of that cliff, and sure enough, there is. How's that for calling a shot? Keep the rod tip high, keep the fish coming, because he's a good one. Bass fishermen in the South seldom use a landing net. They bring the bass to the boat, keep his head out of water, and lift him out by the lower lip. It's a neat way to land a fish, but watch out for those hooks. You might say that this has all the earmarks of becoming a bragging size stringer of fish before the day is over. The fishing forecast was right for today. Just as every prospector dreams of striking it rich someday, so every angler has visions of a fishing bonanza. And this could be Bass Bonanza Day at Lake Amistad. This sure makes up for some of the days when you try everything in the tackle box and still come home empty-handed. Down on the border, they call Lake Amistad Big Friendly, and the lake is surely living up to her name today. Actually, not many fishermen have discovered Amistad. There are only 2 marinas on the entire 850 miles of shoreline, and both of these are on the Texas side. Both marinas have only temporary camping grounds, and primitive campsites have been designated along the lake shore. So, if you enjoy fishing and boating and camping in an unspoiled area, Lake Amistad could be worth considering. You might even hit it on a Bass Bonanza Day. It's been quite a day on Big Friendly. They have a saying in the South that when the dogwood is in bloom, that's the time to go bass fishing. It's a beautiful day in March at Toledo Bend Reservoir, and the dogwood is in full bloom. So let's go fishing. Spring is always on schedule in East Texas. It's that time of the year when the wildflowers are in bloom, the birds are singing, and the bass are biting. A time of the year that fishermen would like to have continue forever. As the water's warm in the early spring sun, bass move into the shallows along the shores and in protected bays. Casting toward shore, sometimes bouncing the lure off the bank or dropping it beneath an overhanging bush, will produce a strike. One of the problems in this kind of fishing is maintaining the right distance from shore. And here's where the electric fishing motor proves its worth. Topwater and shallow running lures work best in this shoreline fishing. Usually, early morning or afternoon are best for shoreline, but there can be at mid-morning when the fish are in the mood. Local fishermen call these eaten-sized bass, and they know whereof they speak. When filleted, marinated in a special Toledo Bend sauce, rolled in cornmeal and deep-fried, they are delicious. But more about that later. Right now, we've got a bit of bass bonanza on our hands. That far shore looks fishy, especially some of those overhanging bushes. There just might be a lunker hiding there. Uh-oh, that's a good one. Better set that hook again to make sure. Well, what do you know? He got away. We'll rest that big fellow for a while and come back to him later in the day. Meanwhile, there's a hot spot for lunkers just around the point. A little bit west of Toledo Bend lies another huge man-made lake, Sam Rayburn Reservoir, created in 1966 by an impoundment on the Angelina River. Some of the largest bass fishing tournaments in the South have been held on Rayburn, but this gathering is no fishing tournament. Bass clubs are popular south of the Mason-Dixon line, and this group from Jasper, Texas, is here for an outing. Like most bass clubs, the Jasper group discourages the idea of bass widows. Fishing is a family sport, and the bass boat has made it even more so. If the fish aren't biting, the bass boat is ideal for cruising and for other boating fun. Another boat joins the fleet, but just for a bit of cruising, thank you. The little girls are really more enthused about the picnic and cookout schedule later in the day. Cruising is fun, but there's a children's playground near the launch area that must be investigated. Then there's the ever-present water skier being towed by a bass boat of all things. Actually, the bass boat makes an excellent ski boat with plenty of power for a good ride, even for a slalom skier. The boat is stable, and the broad beam provides the lift to pop the skier out of the water on takeoff. A versatile craft, this bass boat. Back at the launching area, the cookout is getting underway with appetite sharpened by a day on the water. Being a bass club outing, the feature on the menu is, you guessed it, a fish fry. Now, this is a fish fry southern style. The cooking oil must be at exactly the right temperature, bubbling hot, and those fish fillets have been prepared from a recipe that's guarded closely by the ladies of the club. But now comes the most important job, the fish fry watching, and that's handled by a team of experts. Meanwhile, this father and son team has engaged in a special project of their own. Just to make sure there would be enough fish to go around, they paid a visit to their favorite crappie hole and brought back some of the residents for dinner. We're not going to run short of fish, and that's for sure. So eat hearty, kids, because there's more fish coming your way. This is no place to be on a diet. But if you are, well, you can always get back on it tomorrow. So dig in, folks, and live it up. Southern style, that is. This exciting fishing bonanza was destined to happen when you have the combination of abundant water, pleasant weather, scrappy fish, outdoor-minded people, plus the world's greatest fishing machine, the bass boat. You have all the ingredients for a new way of life. Bass fishing Southern style.
Wow, doesn't that make you want to run right out and buy a bass fishing boat? It doesn't really matter what kind, I guess, either, so long as it has an Envinrude motor on it, right? Anyway, that's this week's episode of Cast from the Past. I'm Jeff Klassen, and I will see you next Saturday.
This concludes our broadcast day.